All right, so I'm going to be going over this new internet ideology, which is really just reimagined, traditional gender roles, traditional family hierarchy with the man at the top or the female makes children for a strong family man, stays home, cooking, kitchen, is good housewife, the whole 9 yards. But basically, with Gaston as the hero in the story, it's so this dude John Doyle invented this ideology, if you can call it that, a NeoGastonism, where basically the three tenets or what have them are eat eggs, promote traditional gender roles, and beat the shit out of furries, which is presumably it's like a half meme, half ironic, but not ironic kind of thing, where it actually does reflects their ideology, where they think that everything is sexual degeneracy, furries, which when actually there's nothing inherently sexual about furries, like Chuck E. Cheese or something, or like characters from Teletubbies or something, unless you're quoting Rule 34, which you can Rule 34 about anything, but inherently, furries are not Rule 34. But let's continue.
I was with a young lady, and she wanted to watch a Disney movie, and so I'm like, all right, we'll pick one, we can watch it. So she's scrolling, and she's like, well, how about Beauty and the Beast? And, I had seen this a couple times back in my youth, and so I liked it well enough, and so I was like, yeah, that's fine. So we're watching it. And then about 5 minutes into the film, the purported villain of the film appears on screen, Gaston. And keep in mind, I'm like tired, I'm falling asleep. I don't really even want to be watching this movie, so, But Gaston comes on screen and he immediately takes Belle's
partner falling asleep in the middle of the movie.
Women shouldn't be reading books because then they might get ideas in their head. That woke me. I was like, for the rest of the movie, on the edge of my seat, just in awe, watching how base Gaston is and how implicitly right-wing.
Women getting ideas? God, that's so sick. That's awful, We can't have women in the conservative movement, having ideas that to promote conservative ideology. I mean, this essentially goes back to the idea that women shouldn't have the right to vote because they're too emotional. That they should that they can't think clearly when making policy or making decisions that are good for society and the economy, because it will lead to destruction of Western civilization and all that. It's that's basically what all this goes down to is that when women read, when women start thinking for themselves, it leads to the downfall of everything, which is central to fascism. So
this whole story is. And this girl, she had to witness the most eccentric, not autistic, eccentric behavior that she'd probably ever seen in her life. Like, she just wanted to watch a Disney movie, and I'm like over here taking notes on my phone, like connecting all of the themes to these really esoteric references and interpretations. And so, yeah, this is from where I formulated the political ideology of NeoGastonism. And it's important to remember that what we talked about in the beginning, how even with stories, our perceptions of them are often forced in order to manipulate certain outcomes that might influence our future perceptions or decisions. So anyone who watches this film will easily identify Gaston as the antagonist. And this is done intentionally because the messaging of this film is actually deeply progressive. And that's the part I'm not joking about. Like, I'm going to overanalyze it for sport, but that part is actually true. And this is most obvious with the dynamic between Belle and Gaston, but also just in the fact that the audience is made to believe that Gaston is the villain of the story. And this is because this story is basically about this, like, miserable proto-feminist seeking to invert virtually every aspect of her reality. And because Gaston represents the natural and ideal state of man, and because they can't change that, since we all recognize instinctively that it's true, they have to instead frame it such that our perception of it is different. So
the movie is about toxic, masculinity, and I personally am not a fan of the toxic masculinity movement. I think that a lot of times, like, just genuine masculinity is conflated with being toxic. But for example, this toxic masculinity that Gaston portrays is one, that is, he's not just obsessed with the traditional, gender roles, but he pursues Belle to the extent that it's harassment. And that it's sexual harassment. He can't take no for an answer. He doesn't value her sexual autonomy or consent, basically. That's what this movie is trying to portray. And although Beast, being the beast that he is, they develop a connection, because they just have more in common. And I'll get further into why Gaston's a problem later on, but we'll just Continue.
That we perceive him to be the villain of the story, when in actuality, Gaston is the true protagonist of the story. He's the true hero of Beauty and the Beast. And so we have NeoGastonism, which is a very simple ideology inspired by the actions of Gaston throughout the story. And it has three tenets. Number one, women aren't allowed to read. Number two, eat lots of eggs. And number three,
yeah, I could have just waited to get to this.
It's simple, yet effective. So that's my political platform. I'm a NeoGastonist. We've restocked the merch store for the end of the year with a few new designs.
I don't need to skip this.
So basically, when you view this story objectively, it becomes very clear that the true antagonist of the film is actually Belle, who's manifested some form of pathological narcissistic personality disorder, plain and simple. And the Beast actually serves as this supplementary character, the sort of tragic anti-hero to highlight one half of Belle's nature, which is
really interesting because she's supposedly she has this narcissistic, personality disorder because she's not involved with the community. Whatever she's, her head is stuck in the books. She's that would actually be more like antisocial, personality disorder, or maybe just light autism, or possibly as a result, of the lack of family, and communication that she's had, which she gets into and is somewhat correct. But yeah, there's it's interesting that is narcissism. But, having a song about how cool and awesome you are and thinking that you were entitled, to the prettiest girl in town because you're supposedly the greatest man in town, that's not narcissistic. Feeling entitled to a relationship with someone isn't narcissism, but this is. So, which is only because she's a woman. That's why. It's really silly. But let's continue.
The beast of her chaotic feminine nature when left unchecked. And so the true protagonist of the story is actually Gaston, who represents the beauty that Belle could experience if she were subject to the natural order of things under Gaston's authority. And so the title...
The natural order of things according to super hierarchical, traditional, worldview. The natural order is really a myth. The natural order for humans is spirals in all kinds of different directions. In fact, the natural order is chaos. You have people going these traditional routes, with the family structures, but then you have, the transhumanists, you have the LGBT, that's natural. There's people are naturally homosexual or lesbian. People are naturally, trans because they have a trans mind, that like the opposite sex's brain is what they have, although they're stuck with the physical body. But I'll go ahead and get into that later.
Beauty and the Beast, properly understood, is not the beauty of Belle and the beastly nature of the prince who's under a spell, but rather the two directions in which Belle's energy can be channeled through a weak and insecure man who will allow her to become a destructive beast, mirroring his nature as a literal beast, or through a strong and capable man who will allow her to become a happy and beautiful wife and mother, mirroring his nature as a beautiful man who has fulfilled his proper role in society. But of course, we are made to believe that Gaston is the antagonist of the story because this film, broadly speaking, is feminist propaganda, which we will get into momentarily along with...
Even that women should have rights is feminist propaganda, according to those people. That's actually insane. This is like... No, this is just basic. This is feminism in the women's rights movement. This isn't anywhere near feminism in the fucking the people that push for critical race theory and saying that cultural appropriation is bad. It's not any of that retarded shit. It's just women should read. Women should get to read. That's all. That's all this level of feminism is in this movie.
So much more, but even this is subtly acknowledged during the film's best sequence, the most famous sequence in the film, which is the ballroom dancing sequence with the film's main theme playing in the background. And it sings of a tale as old as time, Beauty and the Beast. And we hear this and we think, oh, it must be the Beauty and the Beast that we can see on the screen. But it's not. The film is inviting us to read between the lines. Mrs. Potts is warning us. Think about it. A tale as old as time. This is in reference to the beginning of male-female relationships along with time itself, which of course would bring us back to Genesis and the Garden of Eden. And what did we learn from that story? That the woman's nature, if left unchecked by strong male authority, will lead towards chaos and evil. She is predisposed towards this at an accelerated rate relative to men. And Gaston understands this.
First of all, who's the one that fucking presented the apple to Eve in the first place? It wasn't her destructive feminine nature, like I was just that ate the apple. Maybe it was Satan's, toxic masculine nature when he possessed the serpent in order to manipulate Eve into eating the apple. And let's not forget that Adam ate that fucking apple as well. So, give me a break.
He was a hero and a great man who was trying to do right by his people, and yet the narrative frames him as though he is the villain.
Yes.
We will explain how he tried to save Belle and his town momentarily, but first, ladies and gentlemen, there are three trends occurring simultaneously right now. More and more of you are electing to exercise. We're going to go through the whole synopsis of the film right now so that I can prove to you that the essence of the film is in fact a revolutionary leftist essence. What it seeks to do is promote the complete inversion of reality as something that makes people happy, something to be celebrated. Woman above man, chaos above order.
No, not woman above man. The Beast and Belle are... that's the point of their relationship, and later on as they develop, is that they're equal. In the first... when she's first introduced to the Beast, he is... this psychotic, beast-like character, but, she brings him down to earth. Actually, I would say he also brings himself down to earth a little bit with the help of, all the clockwork, for furniture, that's trying to talk some sense into him, to back into the person that he was, when he was a prince. And when they get married, they're totally on an equal footing. He's not trying to keep her away from her books or any of that shit.
Weakness above strength, etc. And if you're trying to recall the story, you might think it's basically about Belle and the Beast, and then this Gaston guy keeps butting in, but it's actually more intricate than that. Because when we first meet Belle, she's lost. And this is because she has no male influence in her life to guide her. Her father's weak, he's old, which is why that relationship is established before the interactions with
Except, being weak physically does not mean that you are weak mentally, spiritually, emotionally. The man is probably pretty well off, as an aristocrat. His daughter has the luxury of not having to work. She's prancing around town reading her books, her fairy tales, and he's an inventor. He's obviously loaded, rich. He's able to provide for his daughter, and she's only 17. So I don't know what the working age in ancient France is, at that time, but sure she doesn't have to do a whole lot with her life at that time. She's a princess. She's literally a Disney princess.
Gaston and the Beast even become larger parts of the story, because from the beginning, the whole story is about Belle desperately needing masculine guidance. And Gaston and the Beast are basically competing to occupy that influence in her life, but for very different reasons, as we'll explain. But remember, as we said earlier, this is indicated by the title. Beauty and the Beast are both within Belle, and the struggle in the story is between the two competing forces, which will decide which one will embody her essence. Will it be a strong, capable, charismatic, and therefore beautiful man to bring out her beauty, or will it be an insecure...
Which is literally the Beast in the last chapter. Strong, charismatic, and capable man. When he goes to save her life from the wolves. When, when he fights off Gaston, the moment she arrives, That's
pathetic, hideous beast, like literal creature that will fail to control her, which will
fail to control. That's literally why she ran away from Gaston in the beginning, and that's also why she wasn't giving into the Beast throughout the first half of her confinement in his castle. She was he was awful to her, while she was in the cage, and even when he moved her into that nice room. She wouldn't give in to him, at all until he lightened up and even and let her go. She came back because he let her go. She didn't come back because he failed to control her. So and she didn't want to be controlled. She didn't want to be the submissive housewife, which is why she left, and which is why, she wasn't, being cooperative with the Beast while he was being this whiny dickhead to her, throughout that first half of her time in the castle.
Leave her miserable, because as we're reminded throughout the whole story, Belle doesn't know what she wants. She has no idea. She doesn't know what's going to make her happy.
So, for one, as I said before, she is 17. She's 17 years old. What fucking teenager knows exactly what they want, before they graduate high school? I guess I didn't know what I want until I graduated college the first time. Because I got out of high school and I went and got into this little drafting degree, and I've been bouncing around contract job after contract after contract. I'm making 15, 16 an hour. It's like minimum wage now. But I hate the work, although it's all right. But I'm going back to engineering school, in my fucking late 20s, and I'm finally moving the right direction in my life. She's 17, and we're expecting her to settle down and marry this Gaston dude, and it's saying he's not being very fair.
So naturally, when she makes decisions, they basically blow up in her face. But yeah, that's the story. So it starts out by describing how exactly the beast came to be. And basically what happened was this poor ugly old woman came to his castle asking for shelter from a storm. And she told him that she could offer him a rose. And the beast, who at the time was a prince, said no because she was ugly and poor. And at first you might think that this is based because she had poor physiognomy, but it wasn't. It was actually proto-Coomerism, because then the woman transforms back into her natural form as a beautiful princess. And the prince immediately starts simping for her. So it wasn't a rejection of her because he inferred from her poor physiognomy that she would have poor character, but rather that he couldn't just like lust after her. And then when he realized that she was...
I mean, look at this. He looks like he's begging. He doesn't look like he's simping for her. He looks like he's begging for mercy. He has his hands out extended like this. She just performed a magic ritual where she transformed into a fucking completely different person, you know, with the glorious long blonde hair and glowing cape and everything, you know, after he, you know, denied her the comfort of a stay in a nice house. But, no, so obviously he's seeing that she's about to, you know, get revenge on him. That he's about to face some kind of karma, and that's why he's begging. Not because he wants some of that poon right now because she just suddenly got hot. So this is a pretty silly point.
And the princess realized that he was this pathetic coomer.
Look at that.
So
He's
she
begging
punished him
on
by
his
turning him
knees.
into a furry, which is like an advanced stage of sexual degeneracy. And the only way that he could break the spell and return to normal...
It's another stupid point. She turned him into the beast isn't a representative of sexual degeneracy. It's a representative that she was bringing the ugly out of his heart into, like, she was making the ugly in his heart like his physical appearance. You know, and let's continue.
Is if he falls in love with a woman who also is in love with him.
Yeah. So the only way that he's going to bring the beauty back out of his heart is if he gets another woman to love him for his good heart, because obviously no one's going to fall in love with the beast, you know, for their physical appearance. So that was the moral of that story. It wasn't that he was simping for her and she turned him into a sex furry. It's this fucking retarded.
Within a certain amount of time. And if he can't do that, he's going to stay that way forever. And so he starts throwing these temper tantrums and like gets depressed about it and just stays inside the castle. And I will say it's hard for me not to think that the beast is subtly based, because he's basically like an autistic incel.
Which is ironic because most of the people who take this guy seriously are obviously autistic incels. So let's continue.
But throughout the film, you'll see that this is just a distraction designed to make people like us sympathize with him, think he's a Sigma male or whatever, when in reality he's just...
The Sigma male is a joke, by the way. The only people who unironically believe the Sigma male stuff are, you know, incels or... But, I mean, it is possible for you could say that if someone has the ability to get a lot of girls but just doesn't because they don't care, then that would be a Sigma male in theory. But we just call them alpha. I mean, it's not complicated.
It's pathetic. And this is a fantastic example of the difference between the beast, who we're supposed to believe is the hero, and Gaston, who we're supposed to believe is the villain.
You see, at this point in time, they're both villains. You know, Gaston never goes through that redemption arc. The beast does, and that's why he becomes the hero later on. He's, you know, the villain for, I would say, the first half of the movie. You know, so
villain, because both embody a position of power, but they treat it differently. It's a perfect illustration of what weakness and strength look like when they have power. The beast acts as a tyrant, whereas Gaston acts as a noble aristocrat. And we see this here when the prince acts selfishly by rejecting the lower class woman from the castle during the storm, unless she could satisfy his degenerate sexual desires.
I mean, do we really think that Gaston would have attributed the same generosity to that lady in that situation? I mean,
whereas
come on.
A noble aristocrat would feel an obligation towards the lower classes and would help them out. Like Gaston, for example. Gaston is nice to his dysgenic manly friend. In fact, he's basically his sidekick. But even when the beast is a prince, he's a tyrant. And then when he's cursed, he still abuses those around him to where they cower in fear when he's present. And again, this is the difference between weakness and strength when they have power. But anyways... then we're introduced to Belle. She's leaving her house in rural France.
Okay, so the point he just made, I thought we were getting to something that he ended up not. But he is not nice to his sidekick. He is not nice to the little degenerate friend, or whatever he called him. You know, in that scene where where his little friend made a joke about Belle's father, and she was like, "Don't talk about my father that way." You know, he was. He didn't stand up for her father. He was laughing with him, until she said that, and then he started, And then he changed the narrative and pretended like, he was on her side, which is ironically pretty weak, and not sticking to your convictions.
France in this village. It takes place between the mid 1700s, mid 1800s, by the way, which is important because she has no mother figure present. Her father figure is weak. So basically, the people who were supposed to introduce her to the world
physically
help
strong.
her understand how it works, what her role is.
He has money. He has money. He's a genius. He's an inventor. He contributes to the community.
They failed to do that.
He is a lovely daughter.
Displaced. She's singing about how there must be something more than this provincial life, and she sings this after walking through her village, watching the community interact with one another. They're asking about each other's families, watching a mother cradle several beautiful children, etc. And she's on her way to the bookstore because since she has no sense of identity because of the failure of her parents, she has to retreat into books to derive her sense of identity. And she's on her way, and the villagers are...
Okay, but... It doesn't mean that you can't have a balanced lifestyle. You can work and also have hobbies like reading. We don't have a clear idea of what her job is, in the village. But again, she's 17, which means she's like, in high school age. She hasn't, figured out what she's going to do, for her life. Perhaps she will make a living selling her books or whatever. But in the meantime, her father's really well off. She probably has a trust fund or equivalent, for this day and age. And she doesn't have to settle down with Gaston, and she's not interested at this time, so that's fine.
Are singing, that girl's so peculiar. She's not like other girls. Yeah, because she rejects her role in the village. Everybody in the village has a job.
Yeah, he really wants her role to be Gaston's tread wife, and that's just the thing. And the point of the whole movie is consent. He just can't comprehend that concept.
They're all unseparated from the products of their labor, but not Belle. No,
it's a very interesting socialist framing of that.
Feels entitled to more than that. There must be something more. But she doesn't work. She doesn't work towards that. She doesn't work towards that
products
something more.
Labor.
She just lives in fantasy about it. She's a single, young woman with no obvious skill set. Anything that could bring her
because
more,
she's 17,
a job, motherhood, marriage
she has
to
a rich
literally the most
dad.
admired man in the village, she just rolls her eyes at that. She's entitled. She doesn't know...
Because... She literally just had a song about it in the very beginning of the movie, about how she doesn't want to be tied down to this provincial life. She doesn't want to be me, his little wife. It's very clear that she wants to have, an eccentric life, which is natural, which is even more natural than the gender roles thing. It's more natural for girls her age to want to explore, to run around in fields and come up with really interesting hobbies. Stuff they don't want to settle down.
Know what she wants. Right. And the only cure to this is strong male influence, which she has lacked for her.
She doesn't know what she wants. I would assume she wants to be an author. Maybe she I don't know. Maybe she'll change her mind later on. She'll become an inventor or something. But I'm pretty sure she just. I know what she doesn't want, and that's Gaston.
Her entire life, which is why she's like this. This is why, to reiterate, Belle is the true antagonist of this story. Beauty, properly understood, is her appearance, and the beast is her nature. Or beauty is Gaston, and the beast is the prince. The true conflict is the weak nature of the beast versus the strong nature of Gaston. But anyways, she goes on to sing, here's where she meets Prince Charming, but she won't discover that it's him until chapter 3. And this is actually foreshadowing. This is foreshadowing and meta-commentary on the story itself. And the average viewer will understand this foreshadowing as when she meets the beast, but she doesn't realize that he's actually Prince Charming until chapter 3, or act 3, the final part of the story. When
he's basically conceding the whole movie. The beast was actually the good guy in the end.
Beast is revealed to her to be a prince, but even then, he's not Prince Charming, right? In fact, the whole second act of the story is centered around him being very awkward and uncharismatic.
Yes. And that brings us to part 3 of the story, if you watch the whole movie.
Who does she meet immediately after this song? Who is the next person she speaks to? Gaston. And perhaps it is Gaston who she realizes is the true Prince Charming in the third act when he sacrifices his life trying to save her. Not even from the beast, but from herself. And
yeah, we totally saw, her remorse, when he stabbed, her love in the back and then fell down cliff. And when she just completely ignored him and his screams all the way down the pit. Bro, and then she has the the moment she's like, her eyes are glued to the beast, as he's dying. Like Gaston is out in the distance. She doesn't give a fuck, bro. And then she kisses the beast in the last second. He turns into a prince. They live happily ever after. Gaston is like the last thing in her mind at that moment. He falls down a cliff, and it doesn't even cross her mind that he's dead now. And you're telling me that's when she realizes that he was her true love.
She realizes in that moment the gravity of her decisions and that maybe she should have stopped being so dramatic. And in fact, I will be making the argument that her entire voluntary captivity in the Beast's castle was just one giant shit test for Gaston. But anyways, here's where she meets Gaston. He
wasn't even aware of her captivity until she came back. Gaston just didn't, notice she was gone when they didn't go looking for her. Like, she was confined for a while there. Even through part of the Beast's arc, she was let go, and it seemed that Gaston just gave up on her, while she was gone, if anything, because she wasn't his true love. It wasn't like the way that Belle went to go look for her father when he was lost. It wasn't the way. It wasn't the way that her father went to go look for her. It was he totally viewed her as a prize to be won. When he saw that she was gone, and he was like, okay, well, I'll find the next best prize.
Hunting. He's with his dysgenic manlet friend, his sidekick. And Gaston correctly figures that since he's clearly the best male in town, he deserves Belle because she's the most beautiful girl in town. And Gaston, by the way, is desired by virtue.
Except that's not how love works. It's not like, I'm the hottest guy in town, I deserve the hottest girl in town. Like, do you even share the same values? I know conservatives debate all the time whether they should date a liberal girl. I know a lot of them really don't like to. They'll cut off because they don't share the same values. And he doesn't support her hobbies. He doesn't support her lifestyle, her books. She doesn't want to be in that traditional family. Well, there's plenty of girls in the town who would like that. The bimbettes, as you would call them, the blonde-headed bimbos that follow him around. But he only doesn't want them because they give him the attention that he expects from everyone. And the Belle doesn't give him that attention, so he sees her as a prize to be won. He wants to. She is the something that he can't have. He's not really in love with her, And once again, just simply two people being the hottest people in town doesn't mean that they're right for each other, which is the whole message of the story, because she goes with a literal beast.
Virtually every woman in town, but his eyes are only on Belle, and so he greets her, and he takes her book, and he asks, how can you read this? There isn't any pictures. Funny. And she says, well, some people use their imagination, and this is the essence of Gaston. He values the objective, what he can see, what he knows is true. And
which is why spending all of his time objecting his own appearance and Belle's appearance, and literally no deeper thing to it.
Real. Belle, a narcissist, only values what serves herself. Like, sure, these words are nice, but only because I get to decide what picture they paint. And so Gaston tells her, get your head out of those books. Which, given the time period in which...
Again, Belle's supposedly a narcissist because she reads and because she has ideas of the world. But Gaston isn't a narcissist because all he cares about are looks, and he wants to win Belle as a prize, like a hunting trophy.
The story takes place, she was probably reading like revolutionary proto-Marxist literature, and Gaston...
When literally 5 minutes ago you were describing how she was singing about chapter 3 in the where is it? Yeah, literally 5 minutes ago, when the song where she was singing about the story in her book, and how she wouldn't discover that it was him in chapter 3, which is obviously a love novel and not proto-Marxist literature. She was reading a love story, maybe something like Pride and Prejudice, or some book that was written back then during that time. But there's clearly not she's clearly not reading a political book. She was reading about princes.
Gaston was trying to save her from that, and he says, it's not right for a woman to read. Soon she starts getting ideas and thinking, because Gaston understands that the woman is particularly vulnerable to the whispers of the serpent. But jokes aside, what they're trying to do here, if you can't tell, is appeal to this whole, No, I'm a girl, and I can get educated. I don't have to have a family. There's more to that. There's more to life than that. Look at this big dumb guy. He can't even read, blah, blah. Because they have to appeal to the feminist narrative which this story is serving. But that being said, 100 years of feminism has vindicated everything that Gaston said. So Belle leaves to go help her father, and LeFou makes some joke about him, and then Belle gets angry. So Gaston berates his dysgenic manlet friend and defends Belle's father, because even though Gaston recognizes...
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that part was actually later on in the video. So yeah, LeFou was, berating Bill's father, and Gaston, if you actually watch the scene, he was laughing with him up until the second that Bill said, "Hey, don't talk about my father that way." And then he suddenly changes and he's like, "Yeah, don't talk about her father that way." And it's obvious that he changed his entire demeanor and is just putting on a show for Bill, because he is, unironically, the biggest simp in this movie.
That Belle's father is a weak man, he still respects tradition and hierarchy, that her father still has ownership of her. So Belle gets back home and we learn that her father is an inventor, which in context means that this guy is literally facilitating the propagation of the Industrial Revolution, which will inevitably...
Oh, God. Inventor, and means Industrial Revolution, means degeneracy. You can't advance technology, in society, or that's, fucking look at this guy with the... I wish I had his setup. Is looking, they got this little neon sign right here. His got his degenerate technological laptop. Got his degenerate microphone right here. I mean, how dare this man try to contribute to his village with making life easier for the people who live there.
Destroy the fabric of the town he's a part of.
Destroying Western civilization.
But he does this in the name of his pride, winning first prize at the fair or whatever. So he has
cool.
some form of psychopathic personality disorder. And then
he's a psychopath because he just does technology.
He defends Belle's interest in books, which makes sense because that revolutionary literature exists in part.
He's a psychopath because he defends reading.
As a byproduct of the Industrial Revolution that he exploits for his own pursuit of glory, since this fixation on creating new material things bled into the study of the abstract and the immaterial, but since that largely predated and transcends us, the new information had to just be criticizing all of the traditional information and basically throwing it all out in the name of progress or whatever. So Belle's father is working towards the industrialization of their town, and Gaston understands this. He understands the threat that it poses. But Gaston is an operator above all things, so he bides his time with this, but it will come up again later. So
yeah, that's called the evil villain plot.
Then her father leaves to go to the fair and literally goes down the wrong path as a result of his pride and his unwillingness to delay gratification by taking a longer path, against the instincts of the horse, which knew it was dangerous, by the way. And then he asks his horse, well, where have you taken us? Because he is literally incapable of accepting personal responsibility, of course symptomatic of his psychopathic personality disorder. So then he gets chased by...
He's incapable of accepting responsibility when he goes out into the woods with a horse and a lantern, searching for his lost daughter.
Wolves into the castle, he meets the props, and he asks, well, how was this accomplished? Because he is incapable of or unwilling to acknowledge the immaterial, that there's clearly witchcraft at play. He would rather think of it in terms of...
there's clearly witchcraft, except witchcraft doesn't exist. And how the fuck is he supposed to know that he's in a Disney movie?
It's like hyper-sophisticated invention or very early form of transhumanism or something.
Based.
So the beast comes down, and he's upset to find that he's sitting in his chair. He immediately starts melting down, claiming that the man came to stare at him because he's so insecure about his appearance. And it's this really feminine...
Bro, okay, man came to stare at it. It doesn't matter what he came there for. He's obviously... was broke into his castle. That's really the main point of this. That's why he freaked out.
He simultaneously chooses to come downstairs to get involved in this because he wants attention and conflict. His staff had it under control. It wasn't even remotely in the same area of the castle that he was in. But he chooses to make it his problem and then immediately victimizes himself by claiming that the father is tormenting him for his appearance. Again, the beast is weak and deeply insecure. So the beast imprisons Belle's father. So now Gaston has saved Belle some time. He's gathered the whole town for their wedding. The guys are all happy. The women are all seething out of jealousy because he's not marrying one of them. And then he goes inside Belle's house to tell her about his ideal future, how they're married, how he's providing her with fresh food.
After she's already clearly rejected him numerous times, he just plans a wedding and then shows up, ready for the wedding. Just fucking puts his hand on the counter and leans forward with his creepy stare, and is like, "Hey, girl."
To cook, how he gives her 7 sons. He literally says that. He's so...
Yeah, she's gonna cook, give him 7 sons. So, So romantic.
Our guy, but he has a plan. There is order to it. So, of course, Belle rejects this because she prefers to deal in disorder, in the chaotic. But instead of saying no, she tells him that she doesn't
But I think literally anything other than being a housewife is disorder to this guy.
deserve him, which is another test. And if you've ever courted a young woman, you'll recognize this test. This is her trying to get you to tell her how great she is. But then she publicly...
No, this is her telling him to fuck off.
Humiliates him by throwing him into a mud puddle. Now she's singing again. She fashions this like makeshift headdress for herself while singing "Meet His Little Wife," and then she rips it off, rejecting it, singing again that she just wants so much more than this provincial life because she's literally rejecting her nature as a woman.
What is the nature of a woman? Women are much more naturally chaotic and fucking crazy than everything that he's describing. Right, this is something that exists in a fantasy, in a trad wife fantasy of hundreds of years ago. These women don't exist. Women can be naturally lesbian. Women can be naturally asexual. They can be naturally degenerate. Whatever you say, and and some of them can be furries. They're not actually. So suck it.
She perpetually wants more, yet she doesn't know what will make her happy. She's always wanting more, but she doesn't know how to define that. So she runs in...
And that's fine. Sometimes you cannot know what's going to make you exactly happy in life. And you can't just say, oh, this traditional family role is definitely going to satisfy your need because of historical context. Like, we live in a different age. And now we have totally different societal conditions. All right,
into this field talking about how she wants adventure, which is symbolic of not wanting to be tied down.
Everyone wants adventure, bro.
And again, jokes aside, this is the message of the film, and it backfires spectacularly, as we'll explain.
No, jokes
later
aside,
on.
this is an
Think
entire
that.
joke.
I want more. I want more. She runs away from this organized wedding. She didn't have to lift a finger. The greatest man in the village, and probably the entire country of France at this point, frankly. And she runs away from that in pursuit of more, and ends up in an empty field. Like, this is very emblematic of the utter state of the Western woman. It's like...
You know what this is emblematic of is that she's discovering her way. She's going through trial and error. She's not settling down for the safe, easy trad wife route. This is what I actually respect is like a capitalist. People, failing and then getting up and trying again and then just, and not settling for, what's easy. She is, Belle is a real entrepreneur. That's what I respect. She's not settling down for, dickweeds like Gaston or whatever this is. So, continue.
I reject the natural order of things. I want more.
Except there is no natural order in your worldview.
Literally in terms of geography and your internalized spirit. You stupid. But anyways, the horse comes back without her father, and so she goes with the horse.
He actually said something that he actually thinks, for once.
She finds her father, but the beast refuses to let him go. And so now she's on her knees in front of him, looking up at him like, please, there must be something I can do, anything. And to the beast's credit here, he just totally rejects her advances because he just goes, no, he's my prisoner. And again, it's hard to write off the beast because he really is subtly based in that he's basically an autistic incel. But anyways, Belle...
Which is... ironic again, because his followers are all incels. But actually, what does
offers to take the place of her father, and the beast agrees if she promises to stay there forever. And at this point, her father, who, he's not a strong figure in her life, but even he's like, Belle, what are you doing? Don't do this. And it just goes to show how women will literally destroy their own lives just to spite standards that they think are oppressive. Like, this girl literally rejected her town and everything that it had to offer. She rejects Gaston, who is literally the ideal male, all because she needs something more. She can't be held...
She decides who is the ideal male.
Down, and then in less than 90 seconds, she agrees to spend the rest of her life in a castle with a monster. And you can say, oh, she did it to save her father, but it's like, first of all, this is 1700s, 1800s France, and that guy is old and fat. He's sick now. He's got like maybe 2 years left. Secondly, she's actually contesting her father by disobeying his authority over her and doing so by masquerading it with the typically masculine virtue of sacrifice. She's literally LARPing one of those books that she never should have been reading in the...
Okay, so... He's approaching this as if she should be looking at her father as just a number. Like, oh, he's going to die anyway soon. But what are the, there's more to it than that. Like, we have a hostage situation. This beast is, like, mentally unstable. He's insane. He has a pretty beautiful woman in front of him. Like, how does she not know that he'll just take both of them hostage, if she disagrees to his offer? And says, all right, Dad, sorry, you're old. I love you and all, but I got to live my life. I got to read my books. And plus, she was sort of depending on her father's, support, back at the village. Like, she goes back to the village. What support is she going to have? She doesn't want to get it from Gaston. There's just a lot more factors in that come into play here. How would we have known that he would have let her go if she didn't agree to the beast's offer?
The first place,
Probably
frankly.
not.
And this is what happens to her. So she has no true concept of feminine identity because she doesn't have a mother figure. She rejects everything that she's called to do by her
I say that her chaos is pretty reflective of her feminine identity.
community because she regards it to be binding. And so the only sense of identity that she can find in her real life is inspired by that into which she retreated, which are those books. So she tries to be the hero figure because she recognizes the opportunity to do so. But in her pride, she failed to calculate how stupid of a hill it was to die on since her father's going to be dead soon anyways. Now she's...
Okay, it's not... She didn't assume authority over her father or like disrespect authority by sacrificing herself. She humbled herself. That's what you do. You could conversely say that she chose to live under the beast's authority when she sacrificed herself. When she did that for her father. So it's either her father's authority or her beast's authority. There's no situation where she doesn't choose one man's authority. So. Sorry.
It's in exactly the situation that she thought that she wanted to avoid, this de facto arranged marriage. So now she's literally in a stone dungeon crying because she thought she was too good to marry Gaston. Remember, the toll will always be paid.
It's not about being too good to marry Gaston. It's about him not being good enough because he doesn't respect her or her way of life or any of her hobbies or dreams or ambitions.
Assumed authority over her father by sacrificing herself for him, which objectively was a bad move, and now she's crying about it in a room by herself. This is what happens when women are allowed to think for themselves. But then the beast tells her that she can go...
Well, this is not when women think for themselves. This is people thinking for them. This is people thinking for other people. That's what this is.
Wherever she wants, except for the West Wing. And you'll never guess where this girl decides to go later. It's like you tell a woman not to do something, and her HUD just recognizes it as, like, objective updated. Do that thing. But then the beast is like, you will join me for dinner. This is not a request. And we have to remember not to be charmed by the beast, not to think that he's our guy, because...
Bro, it's not women's nature. It's human nature. People don't like being told what to do. I would say especially men more than everything, because men, we have an ego. We really don't like being told what to do. Women, there's this, the stereotype of, being like really curious and everything. But men, aren't so much as, afraid of consequence of doing those things. So I would say, on average, more often, they're more often the disobedient ones. to press that red button that says do not press, or to go into the West Wing or whatever. Yeah, I would... Right,
his assertiveness over the woman is not from a place of confidence, but rather his own insecurity lashing out. Like Gaston does this because he's a Chad.
No, I'm not denying that the beast was lashing out because of his insecurity. He's saying these objectively, correct things and then conflating them with Gaston being this great guy when it's actually not the case.
The beast isn't even doing this because he's like a Sigma male, but rather because, again...
Sigma males don't exist.
He's basically an autistic incel.
Which is not based.
And of course she's like, I won't have dinner with you. Yet again, another shit test.
And whenever he voices Belle, like, saying, like, totally reasonable things, in accordance with her understandably frustrated situations, like, creating this image of her, it's just she's being childish when she doesn't want to be held hostage. It's fucking silly.
Which he fails by throwing a tantrum. But we continue.
And it wasn't a shit test. She didn't want to be there at that moment, at that point in time. She wasn't testing the beast to be a better beast. She was just there in her initial stay, and she felt like she was a hostage. So she wasn't even slightly in love with him in that moment. So
now we're at the lodge, all the guys are there, and Gaston's feeling a little bit down after the whole Belle situation earlier, and so the fellas cheer him up by singing a song about how much of a chat he is. Like, they literally have a song dedicated to how epic he is. All the men want to be him, all the women want him, and it's like, if he's the villain, why am I rooting for him? If he's the villain, why is everyone rooting for him? He's drinking with the boys, he's wrestling with the boys, he's singing with the boys, he's playing chess with the boys, he's spitting with the boys, he's shooting with the boys, he flips over the chessboard as a rejection of the abstract in favor favor of natural law. He's hoisting people up with one arm. He's wrestling all the guys in town at once. He's talking about how he ate 4 dozen eggs as a boy, and now...
Which is another one of the main points of this movie, is that being, quote, awesome and super sociable doesn't mean that you're a good person.
5 dozen eggs a day as a man, which is why he's roughly the size of a barge. I mean, this guy is it. He's loved by his community. He rejects books and sources because those are how weak people justify their beliefs, since they're incapable of original thought.
Which is interesting because, this dude has a line of books that he wants people to buy, and he has merch, and he spreads his ideas through, some literature, like a lot of right-wing people write books, like Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules for Life, stuff like that. So just this notion that having to justify trying to justify your beliefs with literature and books is stupid is, pretty retarded.
Takes care of his dysgenic manlet friend. He's dancing with him. Like, this guy's fantastic. I'd be on his team every day of the week and twice on Sunday. How are we supposed to believe that this guy is the villain? I'm being serious again. Like, literally, he doesn't even...
He's the villain because you don't have to be, that typical fucking eccentric, like, I'm evil and I'm here to do evil things, kind of villain. Like, the best villains are the ones that are calm and collected and then plot. And some of them are really charismatic. They're evil because, they're so diabolical, is the word I'm looking for. You don't know that they're evil until it's too late. That's the kind of person Gaston is.
Had the typical, like, I'm evil and I want to do evil things. Like, he's just like, I'm the best and I want to marry Belle. And then the story's like, he's the bad guy because Belle wants to read books and be free and marry.
He's the bad guy because he couldn't take no for an answer. And because he didn't respect her as a person.
Marriage would tie her down. Gaston actually demonstrates a proper understanding of love, by the way, which the Beast doesn't. We'll talk about that a bit later. But now, since the Beast fails the shit test and Belle's not coming to dinner, the Beast is in his room sulking like, she'll never see me as anything but a monster. It's hopeless, just going total doomer mode. Meanwhile, Belle manipulates Clocksworth by exploiting his love of presenting information about the castle through tours to explore the one area she wasn't supposed to go to. And she finds the rose from the beginning with the witch, and she's like, oh, this rose in a glass case, so nothing will touch it. I'm going to go ahead and remove the glass case and try to touch it. And then the Beast finds her and gets angry because she did the one thing that she wasn't supposed to do, and then she immediately starts crying and victimizing herself. Now she's fleeing the castle because she has no principles. She only cares about what immediately validates her ego. First it was a hero complex, now it's this I'm too good to get in trouble for doing things that I wasn't supposed to be doing mentality.
Again, I'll say that, given the circumstances, she had perfectly good reason to go sneak into that West Wing and figure out what the hell is going on. She's in a castle with a bunch of sentient clockwork, a bunch of sentient furniture, a giant, humanoid beast, that's in the situation, that's holding her hostage. How does she not know that this, that she obviously knows that something is up with this flower, that this flower has a significance to this castle and the situation surrounding it. It's fucking glowing in this vase, which is in this sort of unnatural vibe, and it's obvious that it has something to do with everything in this castle. The natural reaction, the natural response, it would be to investigate that and see if it's going to get her out of that situation, possibly going to maybe fix all of this, this creepy, dark, aroma that's surrounding the castle and all of its inhabitants. Like, the Beast obviously doesn't want to tell, the Beast wasn't indulging, in telling her everything about the rose or its significance or what could result of it. So it's perfectly reasonable for her to figure out for herself, because, that's what heroes do.
So she makes a promise to stay there forever, breaks the rules, decides she's not at fault, and then...
Bro, you promise you're going to do something or stay somewhere forever. This says literally every couple to each other ever before they break up, weeks later.
Breaks the commitment. Like, this is literally how no-fault divorce works. She doesn't know what's good for her. She always wants more. She's always too good for whatever environment she's in. Now she's getting attacked by wolves, and so then she's saved by the Beast. She goes back to the castle with him, and now she's, like, trying to clean his wounds. But, again, the Beast gets into this, like, autistic episode where he's growling at her for trying to touch his wounds, and he's, like, LARPing as an animal, because remember, Belle thinks he's actually a beast, but he's not. And he knows that. He's still a man, but he's LARPing.
Because he's actually displaying...
Anyways, then he gives her a...
He's actually displaying, like, natural, like, human-like emotions. Like, that sort of irrationality when someone's trying to help you. In in stressful situations, that's...
whole
sort of what he was
the
doing
biggest
there.
library you've ever seen, and that should tell you all you need to know right there. Like literally, the Chad don't read books versus the Virgin.
Not like I'm justifying lashing out at people trying to help you, but but that I would say that was the beginning of his redemption arc. I'd say when he started to become more relatable. As far as this book right here, it's this library.
You take all of them, and then we get into this really weird montage of the beast like learning to behave or whatever.
All right, so. Library. I mean, the dude is stuck in a castle for many years, himself with a bunch of, sentient furniture, Well, what else is he going to do with his spare time? He has books right there. He may as well read them. And now she's stuck there, Now she's there. She may as well read the books too. She likes reading, so why is there a problem?
And what's important to note here is that Belle's validation and purpose comes only...
Oh, wait. It's proto-Marxist literature.
From control and power. She needed to...
That's rich, because Gaston's whole arc has been about wanting to control Belle and have power over the village, over his persona, and all Belle wanted is to have an independent life. She doesn't want power over anyone.
Artificially and socially engineer the beast into something he isn't to feel validated and powerful.
Okay, so here's the difference there. She was trying to engineer the beast, into a respectable human being, one that doesn't, lash out while they're cleaning your wounds, ones that doesn't, want to hold people prisoner in a castle, for one. Gaston was trying to engineer her, which is rich he's saying this, because Gaston was trying to engineer her into a doll, into submissive, person, one that can't think for themselves. It's okay, if you're trying to build someone up, not necessarily engineer them, but, push them in the right direction. Not necessarily control them, but that should be acceptable, But his whole idea is that she's not accepting this so-called natural order of things where she's a submissive housewife. That is objectively much more controlling than what she was offering the beast. Yeah.
Gaston wasn't enough for her because he was already perfect, and she rejected the feminine attitude shared by virtually every woman in the village, which was that their validation was to come from being the wife of the best man. But since that implied a position of submissiveness to the man, it did not satisfy the revolutionary ego of Belle, who by this point is a sexual Marxist. And she even brags about this in a song, how she's able to change the beast into a perversion of itself.
As when he learned to respect women, is when she perverted him, I guess.
And you might say, but he's a person underneath. Yeah, but she doesn't know that, remember? She's literally trying to normalize bestiality to herself. White women and bestiality. Talk about a tale as old as time.
Probably the only, true thing he said in this video.
I will not elaborate on this. However, just know that there is no greater indication that a white woman has given up on having a family than her adopting a male dog in her late 20s, early 30s. We all know a few of those, but here's something else important to know. The happiest Belle is seen in the entire movie.
I'm sorry. Hey, look, animals can consent. It's sometimes. I think I don't know. I'm not a fan of bestiality, but I don't know if older white women just do it, and I don't really care. I don't have much of an opinion on it.
Is during the tale as old as time sequence. Look at why that is. She's in a place in the middle of nowhere that she's totally unfamiliar with. She's surrounded by transhumanist, sentient, occult objects that talk. She's romancing a literal monster. Everything around her is completely inverted because Belle can only thrive in chaos, in the realm of the unnatural. She's rejected...
Which is, ironically, the most natural state of women like her. Which he just can't accept.
Her home and her spot at the top of the feminine hierarchy in favor of the complete inversion of everything that she formerly knew, because Belle at her core possesses that revolutionary chaotic spirit, which is the consequence of unchecked feminine energy, not guided by a mother, not checked by her father, and influenced by proto-Marxist literature, and now she can only find purpose through chaos. And this is why the tale as old as time is in...
So then he admits that feminine energy... So then he admittedly... admits that feminine energy is actually, chaotic, and not this fucking motherly, trad wifey, order You can't say that feminine energy is naturally chaotic and then say that the feminine role is naturally this tradwife thing. It's like it's very contradictory. Yeah.
Reference to the true plot of the film.
In reality, people can be whatever the fuck they want. There is no natural order. There is no, feminine energy doesn't strive one way or another. It's all arbitrary.
Think about it. As old as time, what is that in reference to? Genesis and the Garden of Eden, where we see what happens when unchecked feminine nature is allowed to manifest. And this is dog whistling to the audience that they have to read between the lines and see that the true story is about the chaos and the order of the female condition, and whether it will be the weak man or the strong man to channel her energy in destructive or productive ways.
Now, again, was it the destructive feminine energy of Satan and the serpent who manipulated her into taking the apple? Was it Adam's feminine energy who followed, her course and ate the apple as well? It's silly.
Respectively, Beauty and the Beast are the competing sides of Belle, reflected by whichever force is able to channel her energy. The beautiful Gaston, bringing out her beauty within the natural order of things, or the hideous Beast, doing the opposite, allowing her to become a destructive beast. But even then,
allow her to become a destructive beast, and they're out picking flowers and playing in the snow and having fun and looking gorgeous. I can't even.
So serious. Even then, inherent to chaos.
Yeah, they're all setting up an autonomous zone and they're burning down cop cars, and it's just her feminine chaos and the beast as they're fucking playing with flowers and birds and singing songs. It's
is that it's always changing. So she still can't be happy in this ideally chaotic environment that she's created, and so the beast releases Belle so that she can go back to being with her still sick and dying father. And as a man, I can't respect this. She literally puts you through all of that, and then she's just going to go back to the life that she wholeheartedly rejected in the first.
She went back to take care of her father. She didn't go back for Gaston or to live the provincial life, as you would say.
Plus, it's this whole as long as she's happy, that's all that matters mentality, which is just rationalized weakness.
No, I am gonna semi-agree with this. Women, you should, to an extent, try to court someone, at least put in effort. You should put in a certain amount of effort, pursuing someone. People like to be pursued, but they don't like to be stalked. They don't like to be harassed. They like to. It's fine. You can lead someone on. That's part of the game. Leading someone on and giving a little bit more and taking a little bit more and giving, that's called courting. That's how courting works. And Gaston doesn't want to court. He wants to take. But that's the thing. If it is pretty lame if someone doesn't know how to take the hints, and play into that game. And instead, they're just, as long as she's happy, that there is sort of a defeatist mindset in that, but. I mean, you have to know the timing. You have to know when they're just not interested, when it's just not going to happen. That's when you take black pill, or actually no, don't even do that. Don't even waste your time being sad about people that aren't interested in you or taking it as a hit to your ego. It's just fuck that person. If your pursuing isn't working, then just. Work on yourself or find someone else. That's how it is.
And this is the opposite of Gaston, which we'll talk about in a second. But again, the true nature of the beast is revealed. He is a selfish aristocrat. His entire help, his best and only friends are counting on him to break this curse. And he throws it away for his own self-image of being this compassionate, understanding guy or whatever. He
throws it away because he realized that he has no chance with Belle if he tries to control her. He lets her go because that's his only chance of breaking the curse. That's his only and plus, forcing her to marry him, holding her in the castle. We saw that didn't work with the first half of her stay in the castle. She was totally rejecting, the beast. She didn't want anything to do with him. And then, he started to have that arc, and then he realized, okay, well, you know what? I need to let her go because, coercion isn't going to break this curse. If it's I force my lips onto hers, that's not gonna break the curse. The rose isn't going to go away if it's like that. But it's the true love's kiss at the end of the movie, which is the point of this whole thing, is what broke the curse. So that's his only chance, is letting her go, actually. And maybe she wouldn't come back. But that's, you either have 100% lose or a unknown percent chance of losing by letting her go. So
He's at the top. He's in control. He has an obligation to his people.
He's not in
and he
control,
throws it away
actually.
out of weakness.
He's not in control.
Pathetic. So Belle finds her father. Update, he's still dying. And now there's an angry mob coming to lock Belle's father in the insane asylum for trying to undermine the distributist agrarian economic model of the town, and also for ineffectively spreading word about the beast because nobody actually respects him or takes him seriously, and so they just assume that he's crazy. So Gaston tells Belle that he can make all of this stop if she just agrees to marry him. And Belle says no, because being married to the literal ideal man and living happily ever after to save her father is frankly beyond the scope of her operations. Unlike agreeing to live in a castle with a literal monster for the rest of her life to save her father earlier.
Okay, so here's the difference between that. The Beast didn't use her sexual autonomy against her. He didn't say like, "Oh, marry me, or your father stays in here." And her, it was a different situation. So it wasn't just about rejecting male authority, because there was two different males in that situation. Her father and the Beast. She has to live under one of those males' authority. And so she accepted confinement. She didn't accept to be, the Beast's wife, or sexual, slave, for the rest of her life. They've been different. Maybe she may have gone with this. She may have gone down the same route. Had the Beast been more of a degenerate, like with that. But I mean, only that's up in the air because they're not like remaking the movie in that direction. But yeah.
Right? And this is because Belle's true mission above all else is rejecting male authority. She does this by rejecting her father's wishes in the beginning, where she gets herself locked up. Now she rejects Gaston's wishes and presumably her father's wishes, since he's anti-beast and at least Gaston sympathetic or Gaston adjacent at this point, to let him be taken away instead of, God forbid, taking a break from having the Midas touch of chaos. And like we said earlier, Gaston is an operative. He understands that Maurice's work as an inventor will ultimately be destructive to his town in the long run, but he's also willing to let Maurice continue to be...
Not letting his town advance technologically because it would affect his personal life, in his own interests. That definitely doesn't sound like the corruption that happens, when again, the steam engines try to prevent the automobile, from taking off. That is the definition of corruption. And,
be free if Belle marries him, because he knows that his 7 sons will end up wielding enough power in the town to counteract any of those negative effects. But for the time being, he's fine with just removing him from the society to go to the insane asylum.
Yeah, it's totally insane for trying to make his society a better place. No laptops for you, motherfucker. No expensive, mic setup and nice neon signs. No streaming. All this shit you got going on. And just go live in the woods as an anarcho-primitivist or something, Since you hate technology so much.
Turns her subversive efforts to the townsfolk. She exposes them to her occult mirror prop and tells them about this mythical creature because she wants them to think that her father isn't actually crazy. And she wants to get the townsfolk to indulge in her occult bestiality fantasy with her. And it is here when Gaston realizes that this has all been one big shit test. He tells Belle that he suspects that she has feelings for the monster. And Belle replies by saying, "He's no monster, Gaston. You are." And at this point, Gaston realizes that Belle exists to pervert and degenerate everything that she comes into contact with. It is no longer about his dream of making her his wife and giving her a happy and fulfilling life. Gaston realizes now that it is more than that. It is about an obligation to his people. She is the ultimate wielder of destructive feminine energy.
There's actually another video on this topic that makes that has a lot better point in regards to the townsfolk coming together to fight the beast and all the people in the castle. Apart from all this trad wife bullshit, that's going on in this video. This other guy makes a point that the villagers and Gaston is presented, with this mirror, that shows this monster. She just came back from confinement. Her father was confined there for a while, and basically everything that the father has said has been validated by the existence of this beast and the fact that they went out to find him in the castle and to kill him, basically. So, given all the evidence and given all of the evidence that they had in that moment, it would have been the logical response to go and find the beast and all of them and deal with it. But of course, had they known all the situations leading up to it, that he let her go and everything, then maybe they would have had a different response. Probably Gaston probably would have still tried to kill the beast, because he's a piece of shit, and he wants Belle himself, and he doesn't, want the beast to have Belle and stuff. But in the end, truly, given the situation, it was sort of like the logical choice to go and kill the beast. but
realizes that the only way to stop it is for him to finally take control of her and provide to her that authoritative masculine influence that she so desperately needs. Her father's influence is taken care of. It's removed. He's gone now. So the only thing left is this monster.
Yeah, the plot's all set, isn't it?
Gaston begins basically like rhetorical.
Yeah, he's removed her father. He's going to remove the beast. He's just going to remove every male, everyone that's just standing in his way from true love, or not true love, from his would-be property.
Psyoping the townsfolk.
What a guy.
To garner support for his cause. Basically just like inventing these bad outcomes that could potentially happen to scare people. And because he's respected, within seconds, the men are marching with Gaston.
And that's not a problem, that he's literally
singing
just making
Gaston
shit up.
praises the entire way there. They're singing, "We're counting on Gaston to lead the way." And this is Gaston's arc as the true protagonist of the story. If there's two things he's known for, it's being the best hunter in the village and attracting the most women in the village. And so
he was sort of exaggerating, making up situations, but honestly, being in that situation, I probably would have gone and tried to find that beast and prevent more people from getting, captured and held in detainment for extended periods of time, disappearing from the village, So, but let's go on.
Now, he must conquer his most deadly hunt yet in order to stop the true beast, Belle's destructive feminine energy, thereby conquering the most beautiful woman in the process, because Gaston is the hero, Belle is the villain, and the beast is basically a tragic anti-hero. And in fact, the beast is such a weak leader that when the castle is under attack, he's pouting in the West Wing with no plan, no way to inspire his people, whereas Gaston literally just makes up a few stories, and within 5 minutes, he has an armed caravan about to storm the castle. They've got a...
Well, I mean, the beast knows that, that battle's going down stairs. He can go down and fight them. It doesn't really make a difference to him at this point. So this is probably what the beast is thinking right now, is that he's lost Belle, and she went to the village and immediately told everyone, and then had this lynch mob, sent after him. That's probably what he's thinking. That's what, understandably, he's pretty depressed about. Not everyone has the incredible, fighting, energy as motherfucker like Gaston, It's just like set out to conquer everything. Because, I mean, that's not the beast's intention. He's not just out to conquer, the world. He's he has real emotions, so.
A song prepared, and because Gaston is a true aristocrat with honor, he tells those below him that they can have whatever they can find for themselves. However, the beast is rightfully his because he's the leader, and the people all respect this because they respect Gaston, because Gaston has a true allegiance to noble and traditional aristocracy. And in fact, the castle's counterattack wasn't even launched by the beast. It was launched by a candle. But then Gaston finds the beast, and the beast, seeing an arrow aimed at him, he literally turns away because he's pouting over a woman. Gaston recognizes this and tries to do him a favor by at least awarding him a soldier's death. So he shoots him with an arrow, and instead of just continuing to shoot him with arrows and killing him, he lets the beast go out fighting. But the beast refuses to fight back, but then Belle shows up, and now the beast is fighting back, and Gaston yells, "It's over, beast!"
Yeah, as I've said, he wasn't interested in fighting back and having that mainly heroic soldier ending, that he's speaking of. It's like, not everyone's into that shit, He just wants to be left alone in his castle, He felt like he was under the impression that he lost Belle forever and everything is doomed anyway, so, yeah, that's why. And then she comes back, she comes back, and makes him realize that actually she does care about the beast, and she doesn't want him to die, in his, as a pathetic, dude getting smacked around by this prick, and that's when he comes to his senses, and it's like, oh, okay, actually she's on my side. I need to save this girl. I need to save her from Gaston. I need to save my people. And that was a very good motivation. Sometimes people need motivation to do the right thing, and that's totally fine. That's part of his arc. This is the finale of his arc, I would say.
What does he mean? It is over. Something that he and the beast have both been experiencing. Gaston means this metaphorically. It's over, meaning Belle's reign of chaos. She will now be under his authority, and she will be happier. And
what he means is it's over for the beast's chance of having Belle. That's what he meant.
The beast cannot have this because he's insecure. He would rather have Belle be in control over him and continue to invert reality than have her be with another man. This is different than Gaston, who asserts himself.
It is not about wanting Belle to have control over him. It is about wanting Belle to be free, probably, I would say wanting Belle to be free from this asshole, and it's about, doing what's right for Belle and doing what she wishes, and saving his people.
From a place of objective value and confidence. The beast asserts himself from a place of insecurity. Gaston being with Belle would make both of them happiest, but the beast being with Belle would just make the beast happiest, or at least less miserable, which is why he was literally...
No, being with the Beast would make Belle happy too. That's why it's a consensual relationship. Being with Gaston would not make them both. With Gaston would make Gaston happy because Belle did not want to be with Gaston. That's the point here.
Willing to let Gaston kill him about 2 minutes prior to this. This is the difference.
That's why Belle came for the Beast and not Gaston.
Between confident, capable love and weak, insecure love. The Beast let Belle go because he just wanted her to be happy or whatever.
Again, this whole defeat is weakness. See, like letting people go is weakness thing is honestly such a bullshit position to have.
Gaston says, no, I can make her the happiest and provide to her the best life, and I will stop at nothing to do this for her. But the Beast is incapable of this because he acts exclusively through insecurity. And so then the Beast lashes out and almost kills Gaston out of insecurity, not out of Belle's best interest. And this really is a Cain and Abel situation. So Gaston, who's not prideful like Belle, who's not insecure like the Beast, he humbles himself and asks the Beast for mercy. He's a leader above all else, and he knows at this point the only way to save the objective and stay in the fight is to ask for mercy.
So yeah, that was his only way of staying the fight, is being a sleaze. You know, so much for a soldier's ending. You know, when you stab someone in the back.
Beast lets him go and then gets distracted by Belle, and so Gaston capitalizes on this and he stabs the Beast. But because of the rain, he loses his footing and tragically falls to his death. Now,
tragically.
This is where the story actually ends. Everything else is basically just a humiliation ritual and feminist propaganda because Gaston understood that the Beast in his animal form was pathetic and that he couldn't properly love Belle because he was a weak man, and so he sought to put him out of his misery and do the job that he was incapable of doing. And still,
that had nothing to do with it at all. He just wanted Belle at all costs. It wasn't because he was trying to do the Beast a favor by killing him. The Beast was standing in his way of Belle, and that's why he wanted to remove the Beast.
The Beast didn't even defeat Gaston. At no point did he best Gaston in any capacity. He literally won via technicality. But now he's still
this guy's
lying,
coping.
But he says, well,
the Beast kicked his ass after he had a little bit of motivation.
maybe it's better this way, because he's realizing that he just killed Gaston over a literal woman and his own insecurity, and that if he just stays with Belle now,
He didn't kill Gaston. Gaston killed himself when he stabbed him in the back and then fell because Beast swung like instinctively.
Is the inevitable result. He realizes that Belle inadvertently killed the most beloved man in the whole village, and now Belle, trying to maintain her control over the Beast, commands him, "No, don't talk like that." So then Belle says that she loves him, the curse breaks, and now the prince is back through this shape-shifting ritual, and guess what? He is significantly less handsome than Gaston.
I don't think so. Actually, his chin is all right. It actually kind of looks like Hercules. I mean, Gaston had all black hair. Some people like that blonde hair, blue eyes. You know, he's good. He's blonde. Yeah. That's the ideal male right there.
Now they're getting married, and it's like, who are all these people at the wedding? Where did they come from? I don't know. There were.
Yeah. It's all right. So, moral of the story is, you know, it's all very funny. You know, the whole twist on like a whole traditional twist on a story that we all know, where he's like the villain, and how he's not the villain, but actually he is the villain because Gaston had everything. Yeah, Gaston had everything except for the one thing that he couldn't have, and he went about trying to get her the wrong way. You know, the story proves that. You know, it's not just about being the best looking dude in the town. It's not just about being a beast or anything, but it's about supporting your partner. You know, that's Gaston definitely possibly could have got Belle. You know, if he had supported her books. You know, if he'd supported basically like anything about her personality. It's like all he wanted was to use her as his little trad wife, as a doll. You know, he didn't want to know anything about her. He just no prize. That's not love. That's not what love is. And for sure, Beast was sort of a piece of shit for that first half of his act. But then he got his stuff together, and he realized what was best for himself and what was best for Belle. He saved everyone in the end, and that's them. Personally, I think a good balance of both. Maybe Gaston and Beast's best qualities, like like being able to pursue. Gaston's ability to be able to pursue people confidently, but without being overextending, without being harassing, and without basically just trying to force it on people. And the Beast's best quality of supporting people's supporting your partner, everything. I think that they both actually had great qualities, but Gaston never had that arc, and this whole twist on the movie is bullshit. And that's where I'm gonna end this. And peace, and I'll see y'all in the next video.